rains. So there were no plants physically in the barn, and there were no living plants anywhere on the property when the county came in, when did you guys come?
November 16th.
November 16th. There were no living plants on the property. Only the harvested plants in the barn from Zine and Song's grow, which was 2 grows, 72 plants each, but because of attrition, there were only a total of maybe 80 plants there. And these plants were very healthy. I mean, they were big plants, and there were, you know, it's hard to say, but I would say somewhere between 4 to 10 pounds of marijuana on each of those plants. Okay? So when the county came, they only saw the dry material hanging in the barn that had been harvested from those 2 grows, Z and Song, that they had been granted the injunction on, which apparently had faded away, and I hadn't, you know, they had neglected to tell me that the injunction was expired. But so anyway, the county came, and we came to an agreement that there was approximately 1/3 of the plants in there that represented more than 72 plants that the county would take, which accounted for about 200 pounds of harvested material, which we loaded with the county, and myself and a couple of other people loaded into the back of a pickup truck, and they drove it off to the dump to be dumped. The rest of the harvest was left intact. Once again, I have no complaints about the way the county handled it, the way the sheriff's office handled it. I think it was all professional. Nobody got mad. Well, maybe Song got mad a couple times. But other than that, very professional. So, you know, that's my total input, trying to draw some clarity as to actually what happened, who did the abatement, and the county was not involved in any abatement actions other than the legal term to come and get the plants that, you know, were over the 72 plant grow. But the reason, once again, for the delay was the injunction that was granted to Z and Song. And that's the only reason. If that injunction hadn't been granted, I would have abated those plants long ago, the same time I abated the other grows. But that did not happen only because there was an injunction in place. So I want to make that very clear. It's not like we were, you know, and say, well, you know, they're not going to get those plants from us. That was not our attitude. We were just trying to comply with the people that were involved in growing these plants, because they, you know, represented a very substantial investment on their part. And all of the people that the 7 grows there left in the middle of the night, and we didn't even cover our expenses. The $10,000 they paid as a down payment, we spent way more than that putting in the irrigation and the electricity, way more than that. So it was a total loss for us. So anyway, I guess that's my material contribution to this hearing. I thank you very much for letting me say a few words. I could talk all day on this, by the way. But
do you have a copy of the injunction?
I don't. I don't, you know, I don't have a copy of that, but I know it exists.
I can get it.
I got another question for
Rusty?
well, or either one of you. You
Okay.
guys say that you're confused about Title 19 and etc. I mean, do you guys?
I've been accused of being confused many times, so I plead guilty to that.
But did you actually give a copy of it from the planning and building department?
No, I got it off the internet. Yeah.
Okay. Did you get a copy from the planning and building or off the internet and read it?
Off the internet, but it was.
Because it says very clear in there, you know, that to grow, I mean, we'll just say, you know, it's for unique ownership, 72 plants, and you have to have a premises, a legal premises, which is a permitted habitable structure on the premises. I mean, I don't know how that can be easily confused or not understood. I mean, if there's...
I could speak to that question.
If you would, please.
Yeah, okay. We had given each of the growers that had the 7 grows instructions that they had. We gave them permission, and they knew it was their responsibility to put a living facility on each of the grows. And each grow was on a minimum of, I mean, grow number one is on 120 acres. All of the APN parcels are very large, in excess of the 41 acre rule of the county. So they were instructed to do that. I know that two people had started building the structure, but none of them, in the end run, none of them complied with the county rule on the structure. They were hoping to get their harvest of gold before the county even wised up to the fact that they didn't have a structure. But we'd given them specific instructions to comply with the county structure regulation. And we then tried to comply with all the other rules.
Do you have written leases with these guys?
Yes. Yeah, and they're in collections as well, but I don't think we're ever going to see money from them.
Well, the ordinance also, clearly identifies that even though you have more than one APN under the same legal entity or the same title, you can still only have 172 plant grow if you have more than 41 acres. I mean, you can have several of them, such in this case, you have 1,300 acres, where...
1,300 acres and 10 APNs, yes.
Okay, well, still, that allows, with that ownership, that allows for 72 plants, period. And it states very clearly that in Title 19.
Can I ask a question about that?
Yeah.
Hi, Gary.
Hi.
We've
Good to
met
see you.
before.
Yeah.
Good to see you too. So that argument about you can have up to 72 plants on each separate APN.
Yes.
Was advanced by Mr. King, the attorney, in front of the hearing officer.
Yes.
He did not win the day on that argument.
Yeah, that's absolutely correct.
Now,
so
there's
we would
another
have
question.
bad legal advice in that regard.
Okay.
Yes.
And then that same argument was advanced in front of the Lassen Superior Court judge, and he did not accept that argument either. Is that
Yes.
right?
I believe that's correct, yes.
And then Mr. Abdallah, the attorney out of Sacramento, filed a request for a stay, which was temporarily granted in front of the California Court of Appeal. And after they granted the stay and said, and we'd like to hear from the county on this, and we filed our response, they then vacated the stay.
Yes.
So they didn't accept that argument either.
Right. Yeah.
So no.
So the interpretation that we were advised was incorrect. And that's how we acted on having the 7 grows, because we could have 1 grow. It was.
Were you at the hearing, the initial
I was.
administrative?
This is the
hearing?
first time I've been to any kind of a hearing.
Okay. So you weren't there at the initial hearing when Mr. Burkett testified that he didn't make contact with anyone at the county to inquire about the difference between APNs and common ownership or the like. You didn't hear that?
I did not hear that.
All right. Thank you.
Sure. I just wanted to maybe try to narrow this a little bit. I mean, the issue of compliance with the county ordinance is certainly interesting, or at least it was the first 4 or 5 times we heard it. But at this point, the issue of compliance, I think, has, for the most part, been decided by virtue of the various hearing officers, the court actions, and the appellate action. The fact of the matter is that those decision makers have decided that the ordinance was indeed violated, it was not complied with, and the hearing officer has assessed certain penalties and fines. And I think to maybe try to narrow our discussion is just really the accounting and applicability of those fines. We could probably spend all day rehashing what we've already rehashed 3 times in court, hearing, etc. But I think at the end of the day, we're going to conclude that indeed the property did not comply with Title 19 of the county code.
I can't help but pass up the opportunity to say that this civil litigation that was advanced by the growers ultimately, and all forms of this litigation that was advanced by the growers in the 2016 fall harvest season, not just sustainable ag, ultimately was dismissed by the growers once they made their applications for stay and whatever. So they never advanced to the merits on the writ mandate that they filed. It was, at least from the outside looking in, a device to stall so they could go to harvest.
Yeah, which they did not get to do. I mean, the stuff that Z and Song got a full harvest minus the plants the county took.
Right. Sorry, I couldn't help that part.
Yeah, well, it's important.
Well, thank you. We'll continue on with the public hearing and ask if there's anybody else. You're welcome.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wishes to speak on this agenda? Seeing none, I guess we'll close the public hearing and bring it back up here for questions, comments, action.
So, I was talking about the abatement of the plants starting. The notice was on August 29th. Sometime before
Actually, in November 16th.
We abated them.
Yeah, but no, I'm talking about what he said in terms of that. So I just wanted to hear, because you didn't, the county didn't abate those 5 parcels, so the abatement has to do with the other 2 parcels.
Correct. There's one parcel, and
One
there's
legal
been,
parcel.
I think an attempt to confuse the difference between an assessor's parcel and a parcel, and the ordinance speaks clearly to a parcel. What the assessor does is they draw, not random, but they draw lines on a map. They have nothing necessarily to do with legal parcels. And if you read the bottom of any assessor's parcel map, it says something to the effect that for assessors, taxation use only, not, it doesn't define any specific parcel. So in this case, there's one parcel that we're dealing with that had multiple grows on it.
Incidentally, Supervisor Gallagher, the 1,300 and something acres owned in common ownership, a series of APMs, all acquired, we believe, I think it was one transaction or 2 or 3 transactions, but 1,300 acres was one legal parcel owned by Sustainable Ag. It was one premises within the meaning of the ordinance, premises, air quotes, and a series of APMs, a series of leases. And therein lied the mistake. An effort to, lease out separate individual APMs when really the ordinance only allows for one 72 plant grow based on that premises size. And so it was on the date in question, August 29, a premises which exceeded the scope of Title 19. And again, when we went back for abatement on November 16, it continued to be in excess of Title 19. And then we've heard testimony that there were other abatements that occurred, and according to the Mr. Lord, they did some self-abatement, and to their credit, and we certainly don't have any information to refute that. But it appears that there were people leaving, but that it was in excess of Title 19 the entire time. That's the point.
And I don't, perhaps the planning and building director could speak to this, but were we contacted for a reinspection after the quote abatement, self-abatement?
No, sir.
Didn't the abatement order say that they were to contact us in case of self-abatement? The order of the hearing officer.
I believe the question was, did they?
I understand what it said. I understand what the question was. And I may be mistaken this case for a different case, but give me just a moment to find that.
I think it's Exhibit 7.
$1,000 per day. This is page 39 of your packet. $1,000 a day beginning 9/20/16 until respondent provides proof of abatement. As ordered by the hearing officer.
Perhaps also, because I think our marijuana enforcement officer was probably out there in August, maybe you could speak to the size of the plants of the grows that were, again, quote, abated. And I guess speak to...
Oh, I can, I'll answer any other questions. If you want me to talk about the quality of the plants, if I was going to hire somebody to grow plants, I would hire them. These were mature. I saw some before they were abated in September that were over the fence line, and that is a
7-foot fence line.
yeah, it's a 7-foot fence. So these were healthy plants, and I think Mr. Lord was candid when he said, you know, there might have been 90 plants in that barn, but man, if you could do that, that's something. That was a feat, because I mean, there was, that doesn't even, that's just one shot. There was probably 1,000 sprigs hanging, and each sprig was
What's a sprig?
like a sprig off the tree of the marijuana, off the cannabis was hanging. They were drying, line after line after line after line, and each branch or sprig was robust, to say the least. So I don't. Any other questions?
Anybody want to make a motion? Do I need to take your second? Yep. Let's conclude.
Well, I believe that this demonstrates some of the provisions of the ordinance, why they were in there. For instance, being unable to track down people that aren't responsible for the property that they have. And my comments are more general. This and the other hearings that we're going to hear are my concerns about commercial cannabis. And I know that Kine is a world's different from maybe not these gentlemen who are at some point attempting to follow through on the ordinance. But I think this, and I will make the motion, I'll get to that. I think this is why we have to continue to abate illegal commercial growers, even as we discuss bringing in commercial ones. We have to have a control as best we can. We're not going to control what goes on back there, but we have to create an incentive for those people to follow the rules that we eventually put in place. So, I make the motion, and I think, what is it on? What are we on now?
Recommendation B, right?
It's B.
We recommend B.
Yeah, but it's the resolution that's in the packet. 17016, and it is page 4.
Okay, so we have a motion for, that's the correct resolution number, right, Michelle?
Yes.
Okay. For, to approve resolution 17-016 with the resolution on page 4 of the packet. Is there any other discussion? Or actually, we need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, motion by Peter, seconded by Gallagher. Is there any other discussion?
I would like to have a little bit of discussion on that. In light of their attempt to at least do what they thought was the right thing, I'd like to see us reduce the number of days to 45 instead of 57. If you wouldn't mind amending your motion,
Yeah, I can see
reducing that. Just because I think what they attempted to do was at least follow some abatement and may have been confused by the stay order. And so just in that, just to give them that consideration, what would that be, $12,000?
Yes.
On that particular.
There would
course.
also be an adjustment as to the interest.
Interest, right?
Yes, and
Right.
Yeah.
Despite the contention that there was confusion about the stay and the abatement order, I think as staff, we don't really believe it was very confusing at all. It was very straightforward. Frankly, we viewed it as just a delay tactic for harvest to occur.
Well, maybe I misspoke a little. In light of them cleaning up at least portions of it, if what they say is true, which I tend to believe what they're telling us, I would like to be able to, give them something back for at least making that attempt.
Yeah, just keep in mind, mid-October is tail end of harvest season, right? Or for frame of reference,
Right, gotcha.
you've got 8-foot tall plants.
Yeah, I got it.
I don't think we have any evidence that there was a hole dug and the plants were buried.
I'll show you the hole.
I would offer my opinion if you choose to hear it. I do not truck with that premise. These people harvested in September after the abatement notice. Some people were more ready than others, and it's my opinion that they left with the plants. And further, as County Council has indicated, we were bothered by this stay. It was clearly a tactic to get to harvest for others, and frankly, we were surprised when we rolled up and there was hundreds of pounds of cannabis still there. But I'm not disputing what Mr. Lord said, because I don't believe that he's the actual grower. But I do believe that the growers, who by their own account left in the night, did not dig holes and eradicate cannabis. They simply just left with their products. That's my opinion.
I mean, I too was very surprised that when reading this, the abatement on the middle of November produced, 280 pounds of marijuana. That's,
Could I speak to that?
So when we,
I was very surprised. I mean, it is what it is. I mean, we worked on Title 19, and Richard said, you hashed it and we rehashed it, and we've been over this time and time again. I mean, it's very clear. I mean, as we all know, if we're going to do business, you got to use due diligence and common sense. And
I'm not disputing
all
the
proof.
fact that they violated the ordinance.
Yeah, I mean, if you know something's wrong, you gotta take care of it. But anyway, I mean, personally, I'm not in favor of reducing the amount of time.
Still amended if you want.
But I mean, it's.
I
want to. It's your thought.
I think I want to move forward. Like I say, I think our problem here on the front side of this, no matter how we face regulating cannabis, we have to make sure that once our regulations, once we settle on them, and we had, and once we set them, that they have teeth and are noticed. So I don't think I will amend it. No, I think I'll do that.
We go forward in some of these other ones. The abatement officer, he also has some that are at different rates too.
I noticed that.
Determinations.
I noticed that.
So you kept your original
Yeah.
motion? Okay. Are you good with keeping the second on that?
Sure.
Mr. Gunn? Okay. Is there any other discussion? Seeing none, we'll go ahead and give your roll call vote, or
please.
roll call vote, please. Ms.
Supervisor Gallagher,
Yes.
Supervisor Teeter,
Yes.
Supervisor Hemphill,
Yes.
Supervisor Hammond,
Aye.
Supervisor Outlaw.
Yes. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. So I guess you want to keep right on going there, the next one, C2?
Absolutely. And as I said, Mr. Chairman, earlier, principally these are the same fact pattern. Your next item is hearing on the county pursuant to Lassen County Code Title 19, 140, and consideration of a report of administrative civil penalties as ordered to Amar Singh Mathbalu by the decision of the administrative hearing officer, marijuana hearing 1621, file number 216 or 2016-54, pursuant to County Code 19-170. Again, the recommendation is the same and will be for the next two. That is, receive the report and conduct a public hearing as I outlined in the previous one, and again, staff is recommending B. Specifically in this case, the board is considering at this hearing the cost as associated with the enforcement of Title 19, the property described herein, Exhibit A, owned by Amar Singh Mathbalu, was found to be in violation of Title 18 as outlined in the decision hearing officer, the officer's decision, which is in your packet on September 1st, 2016. The decision ordered the abatement of the unlawful marijuana cultivation by the owner within 5 days, or the enforcing officer. Let's see, so because it continued and was not self-abated, we did go out and abate on September 23rd. At that time, it had been partially abated. We ended up leaving, I believe, with 23 plants. They were fairly mature, not as mature as some, but so that's the fact pattern. The total amount of the fines comes to $28,905.66, and that's what staff is recommending the board consider. In your packet, you also have a resolution like the prior item, which is option B, that denotes the ultimate cost of $28,905.
Any questions of staff?
Who owns it? Amar Singh Mahfala. He is the property owner?
He used to be Darrell Foster. The property used to be owned by Darrell. Yeah. We've seen Darrell show up a bunch of times. That explains it.
So one thing I probably should point out too, in this and the rest of the cases, there is no home on the parcel. So it's just there's nothing to be in compliance with in terms of the plant count, because there is no house, which is the principal feature of Title 19. So.
I got one question for you. Where you eradicated 23 marijuana plants. Was there more than that at one point?
Oh, yes, that was a small amount that was left. My opinion is, and it was actually substantiated by the grower there, that would have been his to take, and basically what he would have realized for watching the crop all summer long.
Crop share type arrangement.
So you got his.
Yeah.
So I do have one question. You said you partially abated on the 23rd.
Well, we abated on the 23rd. There was only a partial amount of the plants left when we got there.
Because on the spreadsheet it said the administrative hearing was on 9/1, and there's 37 days. So I'm trying to figure out where the 37 days is from 9/1 to 23.
I believe we began accumulating them on the date that the notice to abate was issued.
Okay, that's what I wanted to
Yes,
find out.
and the hearing officer sustained that.
Okay.
Yes, sir, as the ordinance supports.
Okay. Gotcha.
Any questions on the staff report?
Any other questions?
Any environmental damage or signs of on this one?
No, not on this one. There's always random, herbicides and pesticides that, the stickers will come off, but there was no obvious sign that they had done something that had damaged the environment. So.
Well, if I may ask a question, Mr. Chairman? Mr. Planning and Building Services Director, would you
I'm the
agree that
marijuana enforcement
officer, would you agree that all these sites that we're talking about today, where the location on the premises where the grow actually occurs, generally speaking, whether there's any herbicide or pesticide left after or not, there's debris and trash, and it's just a mess?
In the rest of the cases, yes. In the case of not follow and sustainable ag, they seem to be, they're being stewards of their property.
Okay, very good. Thank you for that clarification.
Other questions, staff, this time? We'll open the public hearing and ask for testimony if anybody wants to speak on this agenda item. Seeing none, I guess we'll close the public hearing and bring it back up here for any other questions or actions, comments.
I'll make a motion that we approve resolution 17017 through adoption of the resolution ordering that the administrative abatement cost associated with the violation is defined in Title 19 Lassen County Code be placed on the county tax roll in an effort to recover said costs.
Second. Motion by Gallagher, seconded by Ham. Is there any other discussion?
What's our chance of recovery on this?
That, based, all of these, the recovery is based on the value of the